Hey guys, how's it going? Mario here. Wanted to make a video, continue my videos in regards to PTSD. I apologize if I sound a little different. Um, I'm still going through my issues with valley fever. Got diagnosed with it about 2 months ago. If I get short breath, it's because I'm still having issues with my lungs, guys. So um, I want to apologize beforehand. Um, I wanted to talk about PTSD. Recent news have shown us that there is more veterans that are committing suicide than the 22 that was reported earlier by the Department of Veterans Affairs. What's really happening right now in the veterans communities and all around um, the United States is that unfortunately many of our veterans are being forgotten. Many of them are sometimes waiting 6 months to see a doctor in the VA. In some cases, it takes them 2 to 3 weeks to see a therapist. And these things sometimes are tough on most veterans. Most veterans that go and look for help may need immediate help, and in most cases, because most organizations are booked, they may um, not get to see a therapist for 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks, a lot of things can happen. Um, the other issue that we have is that a lot of the many therapists really don't know how to treat combat veterans that are coming from Iraq and Afghanistan who have PTSD. I myself been gone through 5 therapists before I found the right person for me, and it was tough, um, and it's tough to find that right person that really can relate to you. It's kind of interesting because my current therapist, she's not a combat vet, but one thing I can tell you about her, she's a great listener, and she's very honest. She tells it to you like it is. She gets a lot of info from a lot of the other veterans that she also sees. But I find a woman's point of view very refreshing. She has a tendency of giving me the right tools in order for me to get better. Transitioning from combat area into the civilian world, it's very tough for a lot of them. A lot of guys have no idea. Um, the topic that I want to talk about today is anxiety. Anxiety is a huge factor in the way a lot of us feel. If you guys recall on my previous video that I talked about anger, excuse me, um, I talked about how so many things trigger anger. How the way we did a lot of our missions, the way we did a lot of our things in the military was it was a hurry up and wait kind of thing. And when you get to a certain up tempo and you come to the civilian world, it becomes very hard for a lot of them to get used to that. So we start seeing a lot of issues with anxiety, where you become very impatient. You have a lot of anger issues. You become more aggressive than you need to be on a lot of things. Um, you become blinded by anger. You become blinded by the surroundings that you're at because you are kind of put in a situation where it's kind of a tunnel vision. And I know that in many ways we don't have tunnel vision in the military, but because you're not in that same environment, it's a lot different once you go into the civilian world. So a lot of people have issues with anxiety, where they're always anxious. They're always thinking, outside the box. They may be thinking like, for example, they may be driving, and God forbid there's a bag or something like a dead dog on the side of the road or a dead deer on the side of the road, and they freak the fuck out. And you wonder why they do that because, well, in Iraq, the insurgents had a tendency of putting IEDs inside of many of the dead carcasses and leaving them on the side of the road, or putting a lot of putting a 155 artillery round uh, where there's a bunch of trash so they cannot see the IED. So a lot of us freak the fuck out. You're like, what the fuck's going on? Uh, or you may be at a you may be in a nice area, and most people think that, hey, it's nice and quiet. There's a lot of patrons all around. There's not an issue in the world. But to a combat vet, he's looking all around. And if you ever notice that, there's a lot of people that do that. I have a tendency of looking all around and looking at my surroundings. And people have sometimes think that maybe I'm doing something wrong, or um, I'm trying to be sneaky about something. But in reality, when you work in a combat environment where you got to look at every window and you got to look at every door because anybody can pop in one of those windows and shoot at you. Those kind of things become like muscle memory in your brain, and it gets stuck in your head. Um, get to a certain point where you may be with close friends or whatever the case may be, and you keep your distance from them. You know, you want to have that at least an arm length distance from them, because that's what we did in the military. We had a tendency of always being on the alert, or they come home and they don't feel safe without a gun on their hip or a gun near them, even if you're just relaxing watching a movie on Netflix. Those are the kind of things that many of us deal with. And I'm just telling you guys from my experiences. I'm sure that there's more out there. But anxiety is a huge factor in the way things are seen by many of our combat vets. And I wanted to just kind of maybe explain that to you guys so you guys kind of have an idea, especially for the wives of service members who been overseas and then they notice there's something very different about them. And of course, everybody changes, especially after a deployment. Both the wife or the significant other and the service member. You know, you become very guarded, become more alert about everything. Excuse me, guys. Um, Also, we have a tendency of doing certain things that, if for some reason are not done, uh, we won't sleep right. It'll be kind of one of those things where I check the locks on my doors, before I go to bed. Make sure the alarm is on. Make sure I have my weapon near me just in case. Make sure that the motion sensors are set up right. I mean, all these little crazy things that most people would never think about. We have a tendency of making sure that we have a physical security plan in our own house or in our car or wherever we're at, you know, just in order for us to be at peace. We have a survivor mode, which a lot of people have no idea what that means, but we have a tendency of thinking how to survive certain things. If you notice that maybe your loved one has a tendency of putting a backpack with a bunch of stuff in there, uh, he's just on survival mode. I have a tendency of always bringing a little bug out bag in my truck, and it has MREs and it has water and it has, you know, flashlights and all kinds of crap that I might need. So, you know, they're in survival mode, and you gotta have to kind of let it be. You really are not going to change that person because in reality, um, they're not the same. But how can you help? My biggest thing is making sure that you try to understand them, um, especially for the loved ones out there. Try to understand uh, your service member, your loved one. And I would also encourage a lot of you to have at least one group meeting where it's your therapist, uh, your significant other service member, and their spouse or their whoever they feel it's important in their life, their mother, whatever the case may be, and talk a little bit about what's going on in their head. Let the therapist kind of help you understand how they feel, because sometimes the service member is not good at explaining certain things or the way things should be. So, let that therapist help you kind of understand what's going on in their head. I think that would be a great thing um, for what's for what many of our service members are going through. To be honest with you, I'm in a my quite nice quiet home here in a nice area of town, and you know, I'm always guarded. I'm always have a tendency of sometimes not have a TV on, not have anything on. Maybe I'll watch a video on YouTube or maybe something on Netflix or whatever the case may be. But I have it on low volume and I have my gun with me. And every time I hear noise or I see certain people, driving around my neighborhood, I have a tendency of getting on alert mode. It's not going to change. And if some of the things I'm telling you sounds like you, if you're the service member, you're just on survival mode and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you. You can fight this. I mean, Iraq and Afghanistan are always going to be in here. And the people you lost are always going to be here. And it's never going to go away. I mean, I talked to World War II vets that, they still have Normandy in their mind, or they may have North Africa in their mind. I've talked to Vietnam vets who, Vietnam is still fresh in their mind. And we just need to make sure that we try to understand them as best we can. I make these videos because I really want to help a lot of people out there that may not understand us. And like I tell you guys, I'm not a therapist. I'm a service member. I've been in combat in Iraq, and I've been going through a lot of issues. But sometimes I think that a lot of us don't go out and reach out to others, and I'm just trying to do that. I'm trying to help as many people as I can and try to help a lot of families too, just so they can understand what a combat veteran goes through in their daily lives. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching my videos. I will definitely make more videos and other topics that are PTSD related. And hopefully you guys will stay tuned and keep watching those as well. Thanks for watching. Like always, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And I'm out.